Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in, welcome in. Let's just get our game up and move this out of the way, and we'll get back into the mysteries of Baroque by choice of games. As you can see, we are on Chapter 7, the Danse Macabre, and let's get a sense of what our stats are at as before we get into things. But faculty are our skills, and as you can see, 50% in anything means that we are neither good nor bad in it, but seeing as we are close to the end of this story, as we well know from last week, uh, 50% is not going to cut it so much. We do have a touch of insight, but we are actually pretty solidly okay with science, performance, and crime. As for our demeanor, our personality, we are compassionate, debonair, forthright, very reasoned, slightly romantic, a bit hedonistic, and no more courteous than we are blunt. Life has been a bit rough and tumble for us. We've taken a bit of hit to our electricity. We've also taken a bigger hit to our sanity, and we are slightly less human than we used to be, and slightly more revenant now. Um, so that's interesting. When it comes to our pursuits and desires, we're not big on gaining minions or doing sabotage. We do a bit of research now and again, but we're not so big on getting evidence. We have a touch of a dark personality. We are very much a person of darkness, and we get along with those of the theater pretty well. We are quite lawful, far more than revolutionary, which is interesting because we have actually joined the Rococo spy network, and so we are getting in good with the neighboring Rococo country of Rococo, or at the very least, the neighboring city of Rococo. As for the cast, at least those we can gain a relationship with, Dr. Holofernes, who brought us back from the dead originally, is very much our friend. The blind musician Julian is very much our acquaintance, though we have met him. Our dear Mona is our connection to uh, the spy network of Rococo, and well, also our romantic pursuit. Detective Inspector Raucus is a dear friend of ours as well. He is quite happy that we are actually still alive, even though the first time he met us, we were very much dead. And he was investigating our murder. Chloe, the ingenue of the theater, is um, we have not pursued her, but we are quite fond of her all the same. And revolutionary spy Nicholas, we like less than our acquaintance of Julian. And we have recently caught wind that the two of them know each other. Interesting, interesting. So that's where we stand as far as our stats and stuff go. So let us start Chapter 7, the Danse Macabre. To you, it seemed that many thousands of years passed by while you wrestled with the strange fever dreams of the Crimson Death. While you dreamed of being a dark god and the hubris crazed architect of the Tower of Babel. After such eternities of memory and madness, it is hard to feel sure even now that you have truly awoken. The Grand Theater, usually so filled with life and noise, is dark and silent. Even the rats seem to have fled the building since the plague doctors declared quarantine. The theater's rumors and lore sometimes nicknamed you the Phantom of the Grand Theater. Never has the title felt more fitting. You make your way to the stairs to study the situation throughout the theater. Above the laboratory. With their usual cold and silent efficiency, the plague doctors have sealed up the Grand Theater. Windows have been boarded, doors blocked off. The beak-masked, leather-coated plague doctors stand guard at every possible entrance to the building, armed with sabers and pistols. Nobody knows very much about the plague doctors, a elusive and enigmatic order. They appear without warning at the sight of Crimson Death outbreaks and immediately act to seal off affected buildings. They are not afflicted with the governance of Baroque or any other state. They will not hesitate to use lethal violence against those who try to escape from the quarantined areas, fear with their and all unfortunates within must have succumbed. Then they disappear as suddenly as they arrived, leaving those left behind to claim and bury their dead. The plague doctors are still guarding the Grand Theater, meaning they will shoot you if they see you trying to emerge. The plague doctors cannot be reasoned with. They have rarely even been known to speak, but you need to leave the theater. You can sense that Vincent has returned to Baroque, and that Succoth-Benoth is stirring once again. Terrible things are afoot tonight, and you must play your part in them. Three plague doctors stand on guard outside each possible exit from the building. How will you break free of the Grand Theater? Do we attempt to assemble the equipment in the underground laboratory into some kind of weapon to use on the plague doctors guarding the door? Will we try to steal out of the theater without being seen, which we attempted last time, but without skill enough to manage it? Will we fight the plague doctor guards in hand-to-hand combat, which we do not have the combat skill to do? Now we do have the science and we do have the crime to do either of the two. Trav has a good point. We are pretty sneaky, and they are far better at shooting us than we would be them. Yes. However, it's that the weapon we make to fend off the plague doctors guarding the door is like super effective or would stun them or something. So maybe we just have to catch them by surprise, even if we don't have the combat to take them down. We have attempted to sneak out, but did not go well, but we do have the skill for it this time. So it seems that chat wants to go with 2. So I'm going to go with 2. We will probably see slightly new content just because we actually have sold this time. The plague doctors do not seem to be troubled by the human weakness of the other guards. You observe doctors encircling the theater for as long as you can, but they seem to remain perpetually alert, never becoming distracted or leaving their posts. They do not even talk amongst themselves. They simply stand there, the bulging insectile lenses in their masks seeming to take everything in. This will be a formidable test of your skills. You move as quietly and stealthily as possible, but the plague doctors detect you almost instantly. Those masked heads snap up, and within a moment they have drawn their heavy pistols. The plague doctors move and fire in eerie unison, like 3 marionettes on the same set of strings. You feel an explosion of pain as the 3 bullets hit you, and you are thrown back against the Grand Theater, a gaping hole blasted in your chest. You pass out from the pain. Well, I guess we should have gone all criminal, because that didn't work. I thought it would. And we can't go back to see what the science option would do, so, in the cart we are. When you surface once into consciousness, you find yourself flat on your back, swaying from side to side. You are in the back of a cart being driven through the streets of Baroque, a masked plague doctor mounted on the driver's seat. Your flesh is knitting painfully back together, fiber by fiber. It does not take you long to realize what must have occurred. The plague doctors, assuming you to be dead, are taking your body for cremation at the designated zone outside the city limits. Once you are capable of movement, it is an easy matter to slip off the cart and on into the streets without the driver noticing. Nevertheless, you are aware that there may be repercussions from this episode. The plague doctors possess the uncanny ability to detect crimson death outbreaks as soon as they happen. This may mean you have some kind of link to the sentient disease themselves. Since you carry the crimson death, the plague doctors may be able to track you through the city from. You have made enemies of a dangerous and relentless organization. You had better watch your back. It could just be that we're underneath the we needed 65% crime or even 70, and we just don't have it because we didn't go all in on a skill. It's really difficult to say if a choice of games story requires certain thresholds or not. I can't see what the percent behind the story is. I'm a programmer. I can't go tinker in the back files or anything. But it's very interesting what the failure rate is. This is fairly far along in the story. We've made choices to kind of diversify our skill sets. So I was hoping that at least having a 60+% would be enough threshold to do things. But apparently Apparently, we should have just gone all in on something. Very odd. Could be a balance issue. Not really certain. I mean, this is only my second playthrough. But the city is in turmoil. You wander the streets for a time. There is a new and explosive mood in the air, composed of equal parts fear and anger. People are frightened by the red sky overhead. They believe that it portends the end of a cycle of history, as it did in the last days of Babel. And in the slums of Oubliette and Hogarth Lane, they also believe that the coming end has been wrought by the decadence and immorality of the aristocracy, who dance and enjoy themselves while the poor sicken and starve. It seems that the Crimson Death has broken out in other places outside the Grand Theater, that the plague doctors are swarming everywhere throughout the city. There are a dizzying array of rumors in the coffee houses and gin palaces. Some think the Crimson Death was engineered somehow by the nobility to break the people's spirits. There are rumors that nightmarish things are stirring in the Lower Liette, that people are disappearing. There are stories that Rococo military gliders have been seen to the west, that an invasion is imminent, which we actually know to be true. Much of the rage is centered on an event taking place this very night. In Mokata House on Soho, a grand masked ball, the first of the season, is being thrown by Lord Thallow, owner of Mokata House, and an exceptionally wealthy and influential man. And no expense is being spared. Ignoring the plight of the poor, the anger on the streets, and the toll of lives from the Crimson Death, Baroque's great and good are planning to entertain themselves in spectacular style. The more you hear talk of this ball among the poor, the more the people's fury grows. You suspect that if a popular uprising occurs tonight, it will begin among the angry crowds outside Mokata House. How do we feel about this? Are we pleased and excited? Perhaps both I and the people of Baroque will finally obtain justice tonight? Are we troubled and uneasy? An explosion of anger will ultimately just mean more suffering for everyone. Or are we indifferent to such things and focus solely on our own goals? How do we feel, chat? Pleased, troubled, or indifferent? You tell me. Pleased, troubled, or indifferent? A dick. Doesn't matter that we have links to Rococo, riots and mobs are bad. Also, Mona seems more inclined to quiet work. It's Nicholas who likes things going boom. I feel like you are correct. That seems to be the consensus today, is we are troubled and uneasy. Anger will cause more suffering. And I agree. It's also what we chose last time because we're, again, not a dick. One more stray piece of gossip for your attention. Vincent de Winter, the heir to the de Winter fortune, will be at the Makata House ball, the special guest of Lord Thallow. He has returned from Terra Incognita, supposedly for only a very brief visit. Whether you most want revenge, restitution, or just answers from your treacherous cousin, tonight will be your best and perhaps only opportunity. It is clear that no matter what happens, you must attend the ball at Mokata House tonight. Here we go to Mokata House. Mokata House. The Thallow Family House is a splendid, sprawling mansion on Stoker Row. Tonight there is a blaze of light in every one of its windows, and already the sounds of music and revelry are floating out into the night. Guards from the Gladden Detective Agency, dressed in long black leather coats, armed with rifles and sabers, stand stiffly at attention. Carriages pull outside the house, and masked revelers climb down to join the bacchanal within. In the darkness, beyond Makata's house wrought iron railings, a different class of people are gathering. Eyes stare from gaunt, haggard faces in resentful and ominous silence as Lord Thallow's guests arrive. Baroque's poor and hungry are gathering outside Mokata House, their numbers growing with every passing hour. So far, the presence of the heavily armed guards are deterring them, but you sense a wild, reckless mood growing among the crowd. The guards sense it too. They glance over at the gathering crowd every so often and tighten their grips on their weapons. The Thallow secret. Ooh. There is a curious story attached to the Thallow family, that of the Thallow secret. It's said hair is summoned into the Mikado house study on their 21st birthday to be told the family secret. Despite lively curiosity, nobody outside the family has ever learned what this secret is. It is speculated that it must be something dark and terrible, for every heir who learns it seems to become grim and old before their time, overnight, no matter how cheerful or carefree they may have been before. Is it worth it to learn the Thallow secret? Do we believe it is worth it because the greatest secrets always come at a price? Do we would we rather not learn it because we would rather stay in cheerful ignorance, or who can say? Yes, no, or maybe. One, two, or three. I'll take numbers or keywords. Maybe Mona would probably like it. Mona just likes secrets in general. Um, she just likes secrets in general. So yes, it could be useful. It might not be useful at all, but I guess we really do want to know the secret. We're in the biz of secrets now. Unexpectedly, looking up at Makata House, you feel a strange chill run through you, and for a moment you believe you are going to retch. Flashes of scarlet pain blast through your mind. You feel a sudden conviction. This is where you were taken, after they took you from your home on Radcliffe Terrace. Not oubliette, as Raucus theorized. This is where you were tortured and murdered. Somewhere within this house, you will find the scene of the crime. Answers and vengeance await. Gaining entrance to the Makata House ball will not be easy. You are at least already dressed for the occasion. Every guest has concealed their face beneath a mask or hood, but Lord Thallow is clearly keenly aware of the discontent of the masses. He has hired private detectives to guard the door and also ensured that dozens of police constables are standing by. You consider your options. Your bond with the Crimson Death has given you the ability to alter your appearance, though only temporarily far. It would be easy for you to change your features into those of some well-known Baroque notable, and perhaps you could bluff your way into the ball on the strength of that. Various hired entertainers, masked like their patrons, are being permitted into the house along with the guests. You might claim to be one of them and to have lost pass. If you could demonstrate your skills as a performer to the guards, they might be convinced to overlook your missing pass. You could also try to hail the carriage of a guest bound for the ball. The invitations give attendees the right to bring guests of their own. Perhaps you could persuade someone to bring you along with them to the masked ball. What will you do? So, do we want to use our new shapeshifting to deceive the guards? Will we attempt to be an entertainer hired for the night, which we've tried before and failed spectacularly at? Or will we flag down a carriage and try to persuade its occupants to allow us to join them? Trav already wants to use the shapeshifting powers. And since Winter Fairy is pretty much already stated she agrees with everything Trav says, well, I guess we are using our shapeshifting powers. All right, let's go. Let's shapeshift. Not many at this in the story, so opportunity awaits. You stride confidently towards the entrance of Makata House. One of the guards blocks your way and asks to see your invitation. Instead of replying, you uncover your face and deliver an icy stare. With a quick effort of mind, you have used your strange to wrap your face into that of Captain Lee Fanu, one of the most celebrated heroes of the recent war with Rococo. Captain Le Fanu and their men attacked and boarded a Leviathan glass Rococo airship using grapnels and stolen gliders, defeated a crew far superior to their own numbers, and brought the captured vessel back home at a particularly dark moment in the war for Baroque and its allies. Le Fanu became a hero, feted in the city's aristocratic salons, and uproariously celebrated by the common people in the music halls. Long, lugubrious face is seen everywhere, the piercing blue eyes and craggy features instantly recognizable. Captain Le Fanu is the rare example of a figure loved equally by the upper and lower classes. Nobody would dare stop them attending any celebration they had a mind to, even if they didn't have an invitation at all. The guard halts his movement and whispers urgently to his fellows. They part to allow you to pass, respectfully removing their caps. You sweep majestically past, covering your face once again as you do so. Your features concealed once more, you relax and allow your own scarred visage to replace the Le Fanu disguise. And we have made it to the entrance hall. Travis never steered us wrong. He is the first person to tell you that that is completely untrue, Winter Fairy. He has steered us wrong in the past, but very rarely, yes. Very rarely is he wrong. I mean, he would tell you, I'm pretty sure he would tell you that he, you know, chose the sneak option just a couple of times and whoopsies. You are very consistent, Trav. It is appreciated. Standing inside Mokata House's imposing entrance hall, swept this way and that by incomes of masked revelers, you consider your objectives here. You know Vincent is in attendance, but there must be hundreds of guests at this ball, and every one of them is masked. You will need to try to learn more from well-informed guests about Vincent and his costume if you are to have any hope of identifying your treacherous cousin. You've also realized that this is the house where you were murdered at Vincent's request. Since the Thallow family are apparently now Vincent's business partners, the connection is clear. Perhaps by looking around the house under the cover of the masked ball, you may discover more about a horrific murder and more evidence of Vincent's involvement. Wary prey. Indeed, Winter Fairy, we all make mistakes. But you must be careful. At present, your attire and concealed face mean that you blend in with many other masked revelers at the ball, but the more attention you draw to yourself, the harder it will be to carry out your work here. Vincent is a crafty, cautious individual. If he becomes aware that someone is here hunting for him, he could very well disappear once again, perhaps forever this time, and you will have lost your chance of revenge and justice. You can't remain lingering here much longer. Where do you wish to begin your investigation? We did stairs to look for clues in the Cabinet of Curiosities. We have already done that route. It didn't really give us anything useful, primarily because of what we chose to do down there, but we have seen a good chunk of that section already. We could go to the ballroom and gather information among the dancing, gossiping guests there, or attend the seance being held in the drawing room, which I believe is the occult option that we don't really have information. Like I'm sure some of this has to do with our skills. We are very much a performance sneak science person. So the Cabinet of Curiosities could be useful to us, but I don't think we have the occult to handle what's down there. So I would suggest either of the other two options we have not seen. So as much as is a choice of 1, 2, or 3, downstairs ballroom seance, I'll probably lean closer to 2 or 3 if it is left up to me. So you guys, let me know. Let me know, chat. What do you want to do? 1, 2, or 3, downstairs ballroom or seance? Let's see something new, shall we? To sum up, yes, Trav. And as I said, we've already seen a lot of the content that number 1 would bring us. So Winter Fairy says 2. Does Trav agree, or is it left up to me? Because I will happily pick 2. I think we have the skills to pull what 2 is off. Might be the best idea, but we don't necessarily have to go after the successful ideas. We can do some failure. It'll be fine. All right. Number 2 it is. We will go to the ballroom and gather information. You allow yourself to be swept along the tide of masked guests, the great ballroom at the rear of Mokata House, where dancers are whirling around to a brisk by unseen hidden recess. It has been lined with mirrors after the glass town fashion, making the already huge space seem almost infinite in its dimensions. Everywhere you look, you see mirrors and masks. Vincent might even be somewhere here among the crowd, and you would have no way of knowing. For a moment, you feel a sense of profound separation from the dancers, from the music, from the carousel that goes on here. Hungry people gather in the street outside. You think of the dance macabre, death dancing with lords, dukes, ladies, and squires. You may not be death, but you are his masked emissary, come back from his twilight kingdom with a message for all living beings. Gathering information. You need to hand to gather information here in the ballroom, but also avoid drawing attention to yourself. How will you go about doing so? Will we join the energetic dancers in the center of the ballroom, which I think is the athletics play? Will we play at cards in the adjoining salon, using our ability to read and predict people to stay in the game without drawing attention to ourselves, which I think is the criminal play? Or will we attempt to mingle unobtrusively among the crowd standing at the edge of the dance floor, which oh, two might be insight. Yes. You have corrected me. We do have a touch of insight. I don't think we have enough insight to pull off the cards. So I guess crime would be the third one because being unobtrusive is the thing that we have skill in at this point. So yeah, I think it's athletics, insight, crime, and crime is what we have. Uh, yeah, we are dressed like an executioner. Very appropriate. Indeed, indeed. Yeah. So looks like chat is going with 3, and I'm going to agree. That's the way that we have the stats to back up. At social gatherings like this, it is considered rude for the young and able-bodied to refuse alcohol. You blend in as much as possible for the fact that you are abstaining from dancing to go unnoticed. You move quietly here and there about the ballroom, undisturbed in the general throng. You linger here and there, but never long enough for it to become obvious that you have not taken part in any of the dances. You listen. You overhear dozens of trivialities and a few minor secrets that might be of interest on a less urgent occasion. An affair, a hushed up suicide, a rumored flirtation with black magic. But none of it matters at the moment. At last, your eavesdropping bears fruit when you hear the name Vincent de Winter spoken out. You turn your attention to the speaker, a tall, ruddy man dressed in a as a Carpathian hussar. That's right, the terra incognita heir, he says, addressing the circle around him with lofty condescension. Met him in Port Havre at a party at the embassy there on his way back from TI a couple months ago. Strange chap, full of tics and queer notions. Frightened of all sorts of ghosts and goblins. Ghosts, if you please. Rich as Minos, of course. Someone seems inclined to interrupt to tell a story about their own interesting experiences in Port Havre, but the hussar, enjoying the attention, is disinclined to yield the floor. You'll never guess what I'm told he's wearing tonight. He continues in a leisurely way, speaking over a dervish costume. That's right, a whirling dervish. Can you credit it? Despite the tall man's best efforts, the conversation moves on at this point, but you are left with food for thought. You know what disguise your cousin is wearing now. He cannot hide from you. Ooh. Well, Winter Fairy, you're welcome to Mysteries of Baroque and take that option yourself someday. Unfortunately, the time to make that decision has long passed. But the Widow Gladden arrives. We have met her before. Suddenly, there is a stir throughout the crowd. All eyes now seem to be on a tall, angular woman, her dark hair cut into an austere, ruler-straight page boy. She is dressed in green, her gown seeming to glisten as though covered in thousands of tiny scales, and she wears a lizard mask, its mouth set into a mirthless grin. She takes occasional drags on her ornamental jade cigarette holder. You hear one of the bystanders whisper to her companions, "It's the Widow Gladden." Mrs. Gladden is the notorious head of one of Baroque's most reputable private detective agencies. Gladden men do not come cheap, but they are legendarily effective, whether being used to track down those foolish enough to steal from the rich, pick up dirt in order to discredit those who would speak out against the powerful, or to act as strikebreakers and agent provocateurs against unionizing workers in Oubliette. What do you think of the widow Gladden? Do we consider her a monster? Is she ruthless but efficient and but a efficient and skilled professional, or do we admire her skills and business savvy? How do we feel about this striking and austere lady? Three, professional or skilled? Trav wants number two, and to be honest, that's probably the smart thing to consider because she's scary. Yeah, let's not underestimate her. She is a professional. The ballroom crowd is intrigued by the sight of Mrs. Gladden, and understandably so. She rarely takes the field herself, preferring to run her agency from its Shelby Garden headquarters, and she never socializes. Her presence here, along with her men outside, can only mean that somebody is paying her a truly vast sum in order to keep an eye on their interests over the course of the evening. You hear speculation among the crowd. Perhaps the widow has been hired to watch over the extraordinarily valuable jewels of some wealthy guest, or to stand by in case the crowd outside becomes truly dangerous. But you fear you know why the widow Gladden is here. It is Vincent. Perhaps he senses your presence just as you sense his. Perhaps he fears enemies. Perhaps it is merely the promoting of a profoundly guilty conscience. But you feel sure that he has hired Mrs. Gladden to search through the guests for any who pose a threat to him. She is making her way through the crowd now, her gaze cold and level, sometimes stopping to speak a few clipped words to a guest here or there. You are in the middle of the room, directly in her path. Attempting to leave now will only draw her attention, but she'll easily be able to expose you as an impostor if she reaches you. You need to act quickly. It occurs to you that perhaps you could turn her attention away by starting a campaign of rumors and gossip across the ballroom in an effort to confuse and misdirect the widow. It would not be at all easy to fool this brilliant and relentless woman, but it might at the very least buy you some time. Another possibility. An even bolder plan comes to you. You are certain that Vincent is the master. Given Vincent's secretive way, she may not know what kind of costume he has chosen to wear. You have known Vincent since childhood and are familiar with mannerisms and way of speaking. Perhaps you could claim to be Vincent yourself. It would certainly require an extraordinary feat of acting to succeed, but perhaps the sheer audacity of the plan might help in carrying it off, and you could order Mrs. Gladden away. We do. We have two options. We can attempt to distract and confound her by flooding her from all sides an avalanche of misleading and contradictory rumors, or we can attempt to impersonate Cousin Vincent, which I do not believe we have the skill to pull off, because it is saying that we need an like if we had gone all in on performance, maybe. We do have the shape-shifting ability though, so maybe that would tip the scales. I don't really know at this point. I'm gonna check the stats. Yeah, this is what we've got, and oof. Um, eh, yeah, one or two, rumors or Vincent. We are at 64% in performance. So performance and performance, but performance plus shapeshift. I'm not entirely certain if it will be enough. We are at 64% regardless. So, rumors or Vincent? Rumors or Vincent? It looks like Trav says one. I'm pretty sure everyone will agree. Number one. Yeah, she's scary. We should definitely not tangle with this woman if we can avoid it. You begin circulating through the ballroom, whispering and laughing, drawing people in with the promise of juicy gossip and secret revelations. You claim that a notorious jewel thief is present in the room, that the crowd outside is storming the house, that Prince Alfred has been assassinated, that Monsalivet Palace is on fire, that Apollyon has returned to Aveyron and declared himself emperor of the world once again, that the queen has eloped with her head gardener. No matter how absurd or bizarre the story you tell, there's always someone eager to seize upon it and repeat it with embellishments of their own. You just hope that your efforts will be enough to confuse Mrs. Gladden. A web of lies. Mrs. Gladden is too canny an operator to be taken in by any of the lies and rumors, but you do succeed in muddying the waters for her. She is slowed down by the slew of misinformation you have thrown into her path, like a horsewoman picking her way with care down an icy country lane. It buys you sufficient time to slip away from the ballroom unnoticed. Whew! That was close. Good job, Chad. I believe in us. Madness in Makata House. You take stock of the situation. The evening is building to a climax. The guests' behaviors have been getting steadily wilder and more unhinged as the night goes on. You witness passionate kisses and embraces in doorways, violent fistfights breaking out, challenges to duels being exchanged over the tiniest perceived slight, and huge sums of money being squandered on meaningless bets. The hallways are buzzing with salacious gossip, such as the rumor that Dr. Leon Janis, the famous explorer, has just shot himself at this very party. Guests are cracking open priceless, centuries-old bottles of wine and pouring it over themselves. Everyone seems to feel the same apocalyptic energy crackling in the air. Perhaps it is not just Makata House and the angry gathering mobs and the angry gathering crowds outside. Perhaps all across Baroque, everyone is feeling and acting the same way. Adding to the confusion throughout Makata House is the forceful entrance of the plague doctors. They have pushed their way past the guards in search for you. Many of the guests take the masked, silent newcomers as additional guests and try to draw them into their games and dances. The plague doctors strike at them, and the guards pursuing them with equal chilling indifference, knocking anyone hands in their. So far, you have been able to evade them in the confusion. How are you affected by the wild and reckless mood that has gripped Makata House? Are we reveling in madness, stealing wine and kisses and dancing through the hallways? Are we a solitary brood untouched by the frenzy around us? Or are we quietly observing and taking in every sordid liaison for later use? I believe number 3 was the one we tried last time. Which wasn't a terrible thing, but it ultimately wasn't that useful. Although I might be in more of a position to use it this time. Trav votes 3, quietly observing. Winter Fairy wants to be solitary and brooding. Winter Fairy has changed her mind. Okay, 3. We're going back on the old standby. Because we've become a spy. We were supposed to be a scientist. We've become a spy. Whoopsie daisies. All of this will be valuable. In upper class Baroque, secrets and gossip are the most valuable form of currency, and there is a fortune here. Untouched by the seething madness around you, a discreet and silent figure gliding through the halls of Makata House, you are ever watchful. A vision in red black. Yeah, if we were a performing hedonist, we're not quite a full-on hedonist, but we've tried. We are a bit hedonistic. A sudden wave of nausea and feverish heat washes through you. For a moment, you wonder if the Crimson Death is once again attacking your body. When your vision clears, you see a set of shimmering red-black footprints in blood on the floor in front of you. You feel an irresistible urge to follow them, despite a sickening, ominous sense in the pit of your stomach. You know that these phantom footprints will lead you to a place of true terror, to some unspeakable revelation, and yet you must follow them. Passing by heedless, masked revelers, you follow the bloody footprints, visible only to you, up the grand marble stairs of Makata House's entrance hall, into the quieter house. You find yourself in front of a green baize door. Without volition, you reach out, and it swings open at the mere touch of your fingertips. Inside the study. Beyond is an extensive paneled study. Its shelves are filled with books, many of them bound in soft-looking leather. A great black desk dominates the center of the room, and oil paintings hang on the walls. The tiger skin rug spread out across the floor does little to dispel the pervasive gloom, its sense of lurking shadows and mysterious evil. Something about this place feels deeply wrong. Search confirms your suspicions. This is the study of the master of Mokata House, Lord Thallow himself. Lord Thallow is known for his avid interest in the occult and the web of influence he controls throughout Baroque. Of oubliette to the great industry magnates. There is a great deal you can learn here, but time is limited. What will we examine? Will we examine his correspondence, his collection of occult literature, the binders full of his blackmail material, or the desk drawers full of patents and plans for inventions from the Promethean Society? Yeah, it is sciency. I would heavily suggest four. Four would be the best way to go, to be quite frank. All right, science option for science. You are staggered by what you discover. For decades, if centuries, the Thallow family seems to have been deliberately holding back the course of beyond. There are plans here for all kinds of machines and formulae, for medicine and difference engine algorithms that could save countless lives, that would transform the world. Judging by the curt written instructions and notes in the drawer, these are the only copies of the patents for these things. The Thallow family have destroyed all other copies and prototypes, then hounded their inventors into poverty and suicide. What possible motive could they have? And how did they orchestrate this campaign so successfully for generations? It is a mystery, but you perceive some catastrophic plan at work, some perverse desire to keep Baroque in a permanent state of misery and exploitation. Actually, I have a feeling we know why. Some has been trying to hide ideas from Succoth-Benoth for just such a day. Or perhaps acquire them for Succoth-Benoth. One of the two. A hidden panel opens. As you are contemplating your findings, a panel swings open in the wall, revealing a narrow secret staircase beyond it. A voice crackles from some hidden speaker somewhere in the room. Please come up and join me, Mix de Winter. You feel drawn irresistibly to follow the voice's request. Up those stairs lurks the heart of the darkness in Mokata House. Perhaps the heart of all darkness in Baroque itself. Something in you is pulled to it like metal filings to a... You pass through the secret door and move up the stairs. The secret temple. The stairs behind the panel narrow even more as you climb up them, and the ceiling overhead lowers until you are forced to crawl on your hands and knees to squeeze through the nightmarishly close space. When you emerge into the space beyond, your head is lowered and bowed as though in obeisance. You are in a long room with walls of highly polished brass. 8 smoking braziers cast a harsh light, magnified by an unbearable brightness by the reflection of the brass. The light is too bright here, and every sound seems painfully loud, as though it scrapes directly at your nerves. The sickly sweet smell of incense is overpowering. There is an altar in the center of the room. A huge black thing carved from glassy smooth material like obsidian, with a pentagram painted on the floor around it. There are old bloodstains around the altar. You know instinctively that it is your blood that was shed here. Behind the altar is, at the back of the room, a huge statue has been carved from the same material. It is of a hideous creature that seems to be little more than a mass of writhing tentacles, crisscrossed over one another like the passages of a labyrinth. As horrific as it is, the statue draws the eye irresistibly, forcing the viewer's gaze to wander through the endless maze of tentacles. Succoth-Benoth. A man stands between the altar and the statue. An old man dressed in flowing white robes carrying an ebony wand, his hair and beard snowy white and his eyes cold pits of darkness. Lord Thallow. Welcome, he says, sonorous tones with which he summoned you up the stairs. Welcome home, Lazarus. The sight of the blood-stained altar brings 100 painful memories crashing back into your mind. You lay bound on that altar, and a circle of people wearing beast masks and wielding knives your flesh from you, slice by slice. They chanted, and they burned incense, and they cut and cut. The raw agony is once again fresh in your mind. Lord Thallo smiles. I see you recall. We thought you were yet another failure, another offering our Lord rejected. How do we respond, chat? What do you mean rejected? You will pay for what you have done to me, or why would you do this? What does any of this mean? Do we ask for more information? Do we threaten? Or do we used? 1, 2, or 3, chat. You tell me. What was our last choice? That is our good question. I think the last time we went through this scene, we picked number 3. I could be mistaken. It's been a week since we did this last. Literally a week. We hit chapter 7 on a Thursday, and today is also a Thursday. So it's been a week ago since we've been here. Um, yeah, I don't believe that any choice is necessarily wrong, though. Um, Throwing threats does not seem like a good idea. We live and die by information as a spy. So 1 or 3 would be reasonable. Yes, how dare it reject us indeed, Trav. What do you mean by rejected? But does Winterfairy agree? Question. Or anyone else. I'm happy to hear from all of chat to help me make these decisions. It is why I have you guys here. These decisions are hard. Sometimes I want to make the decision, but most of the time I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, anyone else can weigh in. If we have a consensus, I'll go with that this time around. Even the threat, just to see what would happen. It would be new content. Looks like we're going with Trav. All right. What do you mean rejected? Lord Thallo looks levelly at you. My family goes back to Babel, to the tower. My ancestor, Spring, saw Succoth-Benoth consume tower. You recall that desperate struggle you were a witness to and participant in during your Crimson Death fugue. She had the vision then to realize that here was a true god, a god of void and hunger, the god of the labyrinth, the god who lives within us all. And she dedicated herself to its service. It whispered to her in the night watches. It told her that its appetite was not assuaged. Under its direction, she founded the Brethren of the Bloody Rose. Their goal was to bring Succoth-Benoth over into our world so it could develop things. Who summoned it would merge with it, become a vessel for its divine essence, become its avatar in the living world. They and they alone would experience the supreme ecstasy, dark and hungry, that consumed the world. Lord Thallo seems to shiver at the very thought. But the right kind of blood was needed. For centuries we searched and prayed for guidance. In time, it became clear the descendants of those who were present when Succoth-Benoth consumed the Tower of Babel would be acceptable sacrifices. Their ancestors had been touched by God. They were its children, in a sense, and it is the eater of its young. You were one such, the descendant of Winter, the architect of the tower, and so we brought you here for the sacrifice. Well, That's a heavy thing to hear. How do we respond? Do we ask about what Vincent's role was? Do we say, but my death did not bring Succoth-Benoth to our world, which is what we said last time? Do we ask why the summer family has held, or the spring family has held back such progress in Baroque for so long? Do we accuse him of butcher? Do we threaten that we will give him back all the suffering we have received, or do we just say nothing and try to smack him? Fight, 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 fight. We are curious, Trav. Different possibilities, but we do get to ask all of them. It's true. I do believe we get to ask quite a few of these. So yes, number 3. This is not a choice we had last time because we did not look at the patents. So um, I'm curious too. I think this is a great choice. Why has your family held back progress in Baroque for so long? Because it did not serve our ends. Machines and inventions give humans too much power, power that is not desirable for them to have. It need to be doled out carefully, so control may be maintained. All right. What do we ask next? Do we ask about Vincent? Do we uh, demand anything else? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Vincent, death, butcher, agony, nothing. You guys tell me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Vincent, death, butcher, agony, nothing. Numbers or keywords, I will take both. Okay. Trav says that I should just do 1 and 2 and figure out 3, 4, and 5 when we get down to them. Anyone else want to make a different choice? I'm happy to hear from all. I will go with Trav's recommendation. What role did Vincent play in all this? Vincent, poor, greedy, foolish Vincent, with just enough knowledge to hurt himself. It was he that brought you to our attention. He had become interested in family history, undoubtedly with an eye to matters of inheritance, and was able to prove that your line stretched directly back to Babel. He had an interest in the occult and knew something of our desires and suggested a partnership. All the ridiculous wretch wanted was money. Those estates and terra incognita networks across the East. He had no notion of the real stakes. Thallow laughs. And he was still some use even tonight. I knew his presence would lure you here. Oof. But my death did not bring Succoth-Benoth into our world. No, it did not. But that was all part of Succoth-Benoth's plan. I know now. Dr. Holofernes, the lunatic who calls herself your creator. Succoth-Benoth must have whispered to her, too, without her knowledge. In her dreams and night terrors, planted the seeds for the Holofernes procedure in her brain. You were brought back for a purpose, to die a second time. It will be the final sacrifice needed to bring our Lord from the labyrinth. All right, chat. Do we accuse him of being a mad butcher that needs to die? Do we threaten him with the eternity of agony he has given us? Or do we just advance on Lord Thallow while we still have the chance to strike first? Hopefully. 1, 2, or 3. Butcher, eternity, nothing. 1, 2, or 3. What do we do? What do we do? We are pretty bad in a fight, but at least striking first might give us the advantage we need to survive? Question mark. Whew. Trav says 3. Does anyone else want to weigh in? I'm going to go with 3 then. We say nothing further and we just advance. Thallo laughs and brandishes the ebony wand. Great God, Succoth, Lord of the Labyrinth, eater of your all at once, the statue behind him suddenly becomes a swirling, unnatural life. The tentacles move and twist about one another. There are occasional startling glimpses of what lies behind the tentacles, which appears to be a darkness deeper and more profound than anything imaginable in the human world. You feel your head spin, and your body is racked with pain. You are dimly aware of Thallos speaking, voice unhinged with exultation. Now I become Succoth-Benoth's herald. I can feel it already. Come, Lord, do not delay. You will feast on this world. But you are not listening. You feel as though something dark and heavy is swelling within your brain, trying to burst. You sense that it will bring you terrible power, cost of much of your humanity. Your body shakes as a voice speaks deep within you. You are my herald, my chosen one, the vessel for my power. Oh dear. It looks like Lord Thallo is not getting what he hoped. Do we try to repress the awakening of power with the stamina we have? Do we stubbornly try to hold Succoth-Benoth back, calling on our willpower and reserves of mental strength? Or will we allow Succoth's power to win within? I believe the first one is athletics plus electricity. I believe the second one is occult plus sanity. And the third one, well, the third one. We have not allowed Succoth-Benoth into the world previously. We could just decide to become a god. Yes, our electricity is better than our sanity still. We are slightly higher with electricity than sanity. So, 1, 2, or 3, chat. Repress, willpower, or allow. I suppose stamina, willpower, or awaken is actually better keywords. Stamina, willpower, or awaken. 1, 2, or 3. Trav says 1. Anybody else decide how we attempt to save the world? Going with Trav. We will repress the awakening of the power within us using all the stamina we have left. And cross your fingers and knock wood. Let's hope this works. You grit your teeth, calling on your last reserves of strength to keep the darkness contained within you. You realize that you can fight back. You recall the fever dreams in which you were Succoth-Benoth all too well, even though you suspect that the experience was just an approximation of the incomprehensible horror of truly being such an entity. What you learned most of all is that Succoth-Benoth is dependent on human imagination. It feeds on human dreams and visions, on human culture and art. But perhaps that means it is also vulnerable to such things. You realize now that Succoth-Benoth has chosen you, not Thallo, to be its herald. But you do not have to be its slave. You can draw on all humanity instead, using its archetypes to strengthen you. Which archetype will you choose? The warrior, the trickster, or the poet? We used the trickster in our original playthrough. We have already seen the trickster archetype. It worked out back then. So we have the option of the warrior or the poet. In our vision as Succoth-Benoth, we went with the artist. So perhaps the poet might be a good idea. But maybe the poet is the wrong choice. It's hard to say. I'm sure if we chose what Succoth-Benoth is good at that we must now counter, or whether it doesn't matter. Like, the behind the scenes is not known to me, but Trav votes for the poet. If anyone weigh in, they may. But so far, we have a vote for 3, the poet. The poet it is. All of human life is a song. True visionaries, artists, and poets know this and replicate the song's rhythms as best they can within their own work, creating something that all who experience it will recognize deep down as the truth. But for just a moment, you are opened up to that song itself in all its splendor and majesty and beauty and terror. Eyes flash and your hair floats about you as though you had drunk the milk of paradise. The power filling you, the archetype's strength and glory, is enough to seize back control from Succoth-Benoth's presence. The dark god cannot exert its power over you at the moment, but you sense that this is only a temporary reprieve. Succoth-Benoth has chosen you as its herald, and it will apply ever more force to you until your resistance breaks. If you are not to undergo transformation and bring about the ending of the world, you will need to find a way to stop it more permanently. Thallo has been watching you incredulously. You realize that he understands what has occurred. Succoth-Benoth wished you for its herald? You? But you're just the offering, just the victim, just the sacrifice, and... Thallo's face is white with shock. You rejected it? You rejected our lord, the eater of its young? The tentacles are rising up. He is too shocked to pay attention to the tentacles waving behind him. Suddenly they grab him from behind and lift him up into the air so that he dangles in front of you. Thallo, the architect of all your sufferings, hangs upside down before you, completely at your mercy. What will you? Will we grant Thallo a quick death as we have done previously? Will we allow Thallo to be devoured by the god he worships? Or will we free Thallo and spare his life? Hmm. The conversation we had last week, if as I recall it, was that allowing Thallo to be the god he worships may in fact give Succoth-Benoth power. Freeing Thallo will not necessarily make him our ally, but in this moment, perhaps he might switch just because he's about to die. Hard to say. Hard to say. Granting Thallo a quick death is what we decided last time, and that seemed to work out for us. But truly, chat, I will leave it up to you. 1, 2, or 3. Death, devoured, spared. You tell me. 1, 2, or 3. How do we deal with Lord Thallo, the architect of our death, originally? You might entirely be right, Trav. He may think that if he kills us, Succoth-Benoth will choose him as the next vessel. But it also may be this may be his awakening call that he is a victim if he does not side with us. So it could go either way. We cannot be sure unless we actually take number 3. Sparing his life, we've never seen. We've seen the quick death. As I said, that worked out for us before, but it's up to chat. I'm more than happy to see what will happen. Any way we go about it. Winter Fairy says 2. Trav says 3. This means that it is up to me. Oh. All right. It seems that Winter Fairy and Trav has decided that he should be a snack treat for Succoth-Benoth. All right. We will just allow Thallo to be devoured. No! No! Thallo screams as the tentacles draw him towards the maw hidden underneath. You watch impassively as the brethren's Ipsissimus faces the same fate he would have inflicted on the entire world. His entire body seems to implode in a sudden, strangely horrifying way as it reaches the darkness below the tentacles, collapsing inward into a ball that shrinks to a dot, then disappears. Nom nom. The end of the world. The tentacles continue to writhe and twist, although they ignore you. You feel the need to leave the fetid air of this place, back down the narrow stairs. Even the oppressive atmosphere of Thallo's dark study is an improvement. As you take a moment to breathe, the sounds of shouts and breaking glass comes to you from below, and suddenly you sense smoke in the air. It seems that the poor outside have at last stormed Makata House. The revolution has begun. But even more urgent, you have just witnessed the birth pangs of a dark god. One way or another, Succoth-Benoth is coming to Baroque this very night, and it will consume all things. It is the end of the world. End of chapter 7. Chapter 8, End of Days. We have reached the last chapter that we have experienced last week. Last time, it took us a long time to get through chapter 7. We have definitely skipped some things, or perhaps just been so good at succeeding that we just didn't have as much content. But we have reached chapter 8, the End of Days. So let's see how our stats have changed from that craziness. It looks like performance is now our highest stat. We have bumped up science a bit as well, and we're still solidly a criminal. So that has all been changed. We're still compassionate, debonair. We've become a bit scheming now rather than forthright. We are definitely still reasoned. We're more cynical, still hedonistic, and no more courteous than blunt as ever. We have taken a hit to our electricity, staving off Succoth-Benoth from taking us over. And that's nothing here has basically changed. Yeah, it's hard to balance this right. It would take a few months to really get a good balance down for things. There's definitely a story, but yeah. And nothing in the cast has changed. So that's where we stand right now, is we are apparently have gone all in on performance. So yeah, chapter 8, End of Days. Whew, here we go. The night is filled with fire and noise. Watching from the bay window of Lord's study, you can see the crowd swarming around Makata House and down Stoker Row. They have levered up paving stones from the street and are hurling them through the windows of the Rose Tower. They have commandeered carriages and furniture and are using them to establish makeshift barricades all up and down the row. Every now and then, in the surging, raging sea of humanity, there is a small island of blue or black, knots of policemen and gladden men, swinging their truncheons or firing into the crowd. A hungry, depraved populace has finally pushed too far, it seems. The crowds have the upper hand for now, thanks to their numbers, but the situation is precarious. If police reinforcements arrive from Dorvula House before the barricades are completed, the crowds could be cut to pieces by police guns. Meantime, the guests at Lord Thallow's masked ball are fleeing in panic, while the lower orders rampage through Makata House, burning, breaking, and looting. You have little time left. Succoth-Benoth's final assault could begin at any hour. You may not survive the night, and if you do, it may be in an unrecognizable form. And Vincent is still at large. Your cousin is somewhere among these panicking, screaming crowds. Lord Thallow may have been the true mastermind behind your capture and torture, but Vincent was the catalyst, and he merits a terrible retribution. Should you try to find him? Thallow seemed to suggest that the Holofernes procedure may be ultimately linked to the process by which Succoth-Benoth will transform and take over your body. That being the case, perhaps Holofernes herself may be able to think of some way of reversing or countering the transformation and preventing Succoth-Benoth's entrance into the world. Or should you intervene in this brewing revolution? For better or for worse, this night may change Baroque forever, and, if you choose to, you may be able to make a key difference in the way the uprising unfolds. Mona will undoubtedly know of the violence breaking out on Stoker Row. From hints she has let slip, she has been waiting for such a distraction to launch some critical strike on behalf of Rococo. Perhaps you should go in search of her. Your time is short. Whatever is from this point on, every minute must be made to count. What will we do? Do we hunt Cousin Vincent, at last? Do we help to rally the revolution against the authorities? Do we defend the property and civilians of Stoker Row from the rioters? Do we go in search of our dear Mona, or do we search for holoferns as we did the first round. Correct. Holoferns had brain damage and didn't come up with the cybernetic option. I'm not sure that Holoferns is in a place to be helpful. She was not, because of that, we weren't even ourselves the way we did in our first run because we had not saved her in time. So Holoferns may not be an option for us. However, we are sciencey enough that maybe together we could figure something out. It's hard to say. We do adore Mona. We are in love with her. We even told the plague doctors that our love for Mona is what keeps us in the world. Yeah, we dabble. We've dabbled a bit, but yes. Letting Mona know what is going on might, in fact, be very helpful. Yes. We are lawful enough that we would probably side with the police over the revolution at this point. We are more lawful than we are revolutionary. However, we started this story wanting to hunt down our cousin Vincent, and we have yet to get our hands on him. So, Trav says 4. What does the rest of that think? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Every day. Goodness, that phone. Vincent, Revolution, Police, Mona, or Holoferns. Winter Fairy says Vincent. Says Mona. I guess that leaves it up to me, unless somebody else wants to. Oh, Travis changed his mind. All vengeance, all the time. Cousin Vincent's going down. Let's go. Revolutions, mad cultists, dark gods, they can all wait. Vincent owes you a terrible debt of pain. He will not slip through your fingers tonight. You know that he is somewhere among the crowds of terrified guests, but the masks, the fires, and the chaos will make finding him truly challenging. You learned earlier in the evening that Vincent intended to attend the masked ball dressed as a whirling dervish. Descending the stairs to the scenes of chaos and terror in Makata's grand entrance hall, you spot a man dressed in the colorful rags of a Scheherazad's dervish, concealed beneath a veil of coins, fleeing out the great front door. It must be Vincent. You race after him. All right, Winter Fairy. Yes, give Caleb all our love and celebrate the end of his schooling. I'm sure he will be happy to have be done with it, at least for this year. We'll see you again soon, I hope. Vincent cannot hide from me. You are just moments behind Vincent. He bursts out the front door. The row beyond is a scene of madness. Police struggle with rioters in the light of burning houses. Overturned carriages have been turned into makeshift barricades, manned by ragged men and women armed with stolen police guns and paving stones heaved up from the street. You know that you have Vincent now. Whatever carriage he is in, there is no way to drive it in either direction, and he will not get far on foot through these embattled streets. He casts a glance of terror and disbelief at you as you emerge from a Makata house behind him. You know that he senses who you are, and that costume is useless against you. It is as though revenge itself has come for him. Vincent flees a little way down the street and stops behind a peculiar-looking vehicle. It looks something like an old-fashioned sedan chair, propped up on 4 spindly steel supports, but whatever bearers it had must have fled. Vincent, casting another backwards glance at you, leaps into it. The skitter cob. Moments later, the chair's poles quiver and flex, rising and falling with a regular motion. When the chair then the chair is on the move, racing on its 4 segmented, flexible steel legs with dazzling speed. Vincent clearly piloting it. He does not slow down as he reaches the first barricade, a toppled-over carriage. The sedan chair nimbly dodges the hail of stones and bullets coming from the people stationed on the barricade, veers to the left, and runs diagonally up the wall of the Stoker Row townhouse facade at the end of the barricade. The people on the barricade stare in disbelief at the blur of motion as Vincent's vehicle drops down on the other side and continues to race down Stoker Row, leaping over rioters and policemen and climbing over barricades. You have heard of clockwork vehicles such as these. They are known as skitter cobs, and they are said to have been popular in terra incognita, used to cross the mountainous and rocky terrain of the interior. Vincent must have brought one over from that distant continent. You cannot allow him to use it to escape you. Do we chase after him on foot, or will we grab a rifle from a guard's body and try to shoot down the skittercob? I don't think either option is going to be all that successful, but I will go with whatever chat thinks. You guys tell me. Chase or shoot? Chase or shoot? One or two. Well, Trav is probably right. We don't have the skill in combat to use the rifle effectively. No, the people behind the barricades are shooting at the skittercob and not doing a very good job of it either. So it's not seeming to slow it down. The best we can do is chase after him on foot and hope that we are skilled enough at slipping through crowds to manage that. The chase. To the chase. The skittercob is moving at remarkable speeds through the chaotic embattled row. To catch up with it on foot would require superhuman feats of speed and agility. You race after the skittercob, but it is hopeless. Vincent's strange machine can race up walls and leap over people and barricades. While you are still trying to clear the second barricade, the skittercob and its driver vanish down the far end of Stoker Row. Vincent has escaped. Yes, if we had had wings, we could have flown, but we do not have wings. Sadly, that was not the run for wings. It is hopeless to try and catch him now. Baroque is in chaos, and you yourself are in great and growing danger. Perhaps if you survive this night of blood and hellfire, you will be able to seek out Vincent once again in whatever hiding place he thinks himself secure from you. But for now, that human cockroach has once again escaped retribution. There is no time to curse him. Your final struggle with Succoth-Benoth is beginning. The time has come. In the dark days since your reanimation, you have learned many troubling things. You've learned Succoth-Benoth, dark god of the labyrinth, and its endless, insatiable hunger for the light and color of the living world and above its own. You yourself have had a taste of Succoth-Benoth's tormented existence and seen how it consumed the Tower of Babel in a vain effort to sate its hunger. Your encounter with Lord Thallow has finished the puzzle. You are the heir of a Babel bloodline shaped and directed, and in some sense even spawned, by Succoth-Benoth itself. Thanks to the rites that the Brethren carried out on you of the Holofernes procedure, you have been shaped into a worthy vessel of dark god. It plans to take you over, alter your shape to its own, then consume Baroque and perhaps all the world after that. Even now, you can feel it stirring in your mind. It whispers to you as it has before, promising you unimaginable power and dark insight as its herald, as its earthly form. This is the merging with the Godhead that Lord Thallow craved. Beyond even that, you feel a shockingly powerful emotion. Desire. Succoth-Benoth wants you. Succoth-Benoth loves you as it loves all things. It loves all human thought and emotion. But above all, it loves tragedy and pain because they bring it the highest and sweetest sensations of all. It feeds on these things, uses them to grow strange gardens in the desolate reaches of the labyrinth. And as it obtains more, it grows stronger and its reach becomes wider. Above all places in the living world, its tendrils have embraced Baroque the most closely, intertwining with every tier of the city, from the mansions of Shelby Gardens to the noisome passages of Oubliette. It has twisted Baroque, spawned monsters in its shadows, filled its citizens' hearts with madness and darkness. Generation by generation has transformed Baroque into the city of dreadful night. And as its herald, your actions have brought it a rich harvest throughout Baroque. The pain you have suffered has fed Succoth-Benoth. So has the pain you have caused others. Made fat and strong by tragedy, Succoth-Benoth begins to pour like an oozing tidal wave into your mind. Perhaps there may be some key to stopping Succoth-Benoth among the secrets you have gathered since your reanimation. Or perhaps the answer lies in your own mind. Philosophers and artists sometimes the power of art, of its miraculous ability to form and transcend consciousness. Could you repel Succoth-Benoth's invasion of your mind by mentally creating such a perfect work of art? What do we do? Will we try to To mentally compose a work of perfect that there will be no place in my mind for Succoth-Benoth. Attempt to use all of our cult lore and insight into divining Succoth-Benoth's true name in order to banish it? Or will we submit willingly and take on the role of its herald into this world? Trav said, I believe that is our best bet. We might still fail, but we could certainly try. If anyone else wishes to weigh in on this very important uh, choice, you may. One, two, or three: art, occult, or submit. Shall we become the herald of Succoth-Benoth, or shall we try to save the world? It looks like one is the choice that we have on the table, so I will go with we will try to mentally compose a work of art so perfect that there will be no place in our mind for Succoth-Benoth. It is as though time stops still, as though you have been granted a secret miracle, as some say the playwrights of Ukbar experience in the throes of creation. You close your eyes and envision your art. What will we create? A play or a painting? Um, well, we are acquainted with the theater. We did create an endlessly flexible set, endlessly flexible change of scenery, a whole bunch of machines at the theater. So a play might be the most appropriate for us. But we have three choices: a symphony, a play, or a painting. Yes, we are the phantom of the Grand Theater, and we do have performance. There's scenery, machinery, the best. We fixed it. We improved it. Even it is a thing of flexible and fascinating secrets that those machines. Currently, a play is what is on the table. If anyone else wishes to weigh in, they may. Please. I'd love to hear from my chat. Looks like we're going with a play. Succoth-Benoth can feed on the complexities, subtleties, and nuances of drama. You must choke it with them. Provide it with such a feast of sensation and ideas that it ceases for it to be possible to exit within your mind, that it will simply be swallowed up within your drama. You have no paper or pen or paper with which to write. Create the entire play within your mind. You set the stage in your mind, assemble the characters in the blink of an eye, and set them to talking and fighting and scheming and joking. A bare stage becomes a bustling street, a palace hall, a battlefield, and then all the world. You will try later on to recall the details of your play, recall even the basics of the plot and characters, but it is useless, like trying to recall the most astonishing of dreams. You can only recall them at the single moment of absolute concentration. All you know is that the play you created in a glorious, timeless hour contained all the golden threads of life itself and hints at some greater insight, something that would make sense of all of life's chaos. Succoth-Benoth tries to consume it, as it consumes things, but to no avail. It cannot eat your play, but instead your play begins to absorb it. It becomes part of the action, just another plot thread within the action of the play. Soon, the dark god disappears. It has become one with the drama in your mind, and like it will slowly fade from consciousness. Succoth-Benoth is gone. A new day breaks over Baroque. The revolution is quickly and efficiently stamped out. Ringleaders are caught and executed or sent to Paranesi. The factory owners, presenting a united front, enforce a collective punishment on their sullen and defeated workers. It will be a long time before any of them dare to try and organize themselves again. Rococo's raid. The day after the riots, rumors fly in abundance. One of the stranger stories is of a daring aerial raid carried out by commandos from Rococo on Montalivet Palace, with the apparent goal of kidnapping the queen. Held by the palace guard, and it is officially denied by Rococo, but it has increased the tension between the two nations. Some talk of another war. Vincent's fate. Yep, we could have been a part of that. We absolutely could have. Vincent escaped on the night of the masked ball. Cushioned by his wealth and connections, he manages to return by steamer to Terra Incognita. In that distant land, he lives the life of a paranoid recluse. He spends a fortune on fortifying an estate in a remote, hilly region of South Terra Incognita, building walls and fiendish traps, hiring a private army of soldiers of fortune to guard it. In time, he becomes known by the locals as Mad de Winter, forever sending his men out to inquire if any strangers have come to the area, what their intentions look to be, and most baffling of all, if they are scarred. And so he lives his life in the new world in terror of judgment and vengeance finally coming for him from the old. The Grand Theater. The Grand Theater emerges from its period of quarantine battered but unbowed. It reopens once again and welcomes in its small but loyal customer base. There will always be enough loners, misfits, and dreamers in Baroque for the Grand Theater's doors to remain open, no matter how shabby and down at heel the building and its interiors become. However, Chloe will not be among the performers. You learn that she died of a wasting illness not long before the riots broke out. The Grand Theater remains on its quiet perch in Walpole Hill, dreaming the years away and playing host to a swelling cast of ghosts and shadows, and still revealing its mysteries to a chosen few among the living. And you? At the end of all the madness and horror, of secrets uncovered and struggles with dark gods, what becomes of you? Unfortunately, Holofrens was able to make little headway on her research during the crowded days after your reanimation at Castle Barrow and the events that followed. When you undergo the procedure again, you do not feel the same blast of vigor and strength that you did the first time, and your blackouts remain a worrying problem. Holofrens believes that you have a matter of years left to live. Perhaps you must make it count as best you can. Your scars. You find that the mental stress and the strain of your adventures exact a toll. You have seen so many horrific things, learned so many mind blasting secrets, undergone such bizarre transformations and mutations. Memory becomes a burden for you, one that weighs heavily on your shoulders. You suffer from frequent nightmares in which you are back on the altar at Makata House, watching the knives glitter in the hands of your murderers, or in the burning Castle Barrow, or tangled up with the cruel machinery of the demented Dr. Tausk, or running after the White Devil through the stifling darkness and lurid forge fires of Oubliette. You find yourself waking up screaming more than once. The life to come. During the time since your reanimation, you have gathered sufficient evidence to prove your identity. Unfortunately, this is not enough to secure the terra incognita fortune that Vincent stole from you. People claiming to be De Winter relatives have descended like a horde of locusts, each of them claiming sole rights to the estate. Innumerable dwelling lost in the notoriously slow and grinding Baroque courts. By the time anyone is able to claim victory and the terra incognita fortune, likely centuries from now, the money will be long used on lawyers' fees. But at least you are able to step back into your occupation, your circle of acquaintances, and your rooms on Radcliffe Terrace. Those you met away. Mona continues her work on behalf of the Vendetta throughout Baroque and beyond, but her love for you remains ardent and undiminished. It is more than love for Mona. You sense that you are the one individual whom she trusts completely and absolutely, with her work for the Vendetta, but also the hidden truths of herself, her secret fears and weaknesses. Sitting on the roof of the observatory, passing a bottle of wine back and forth, you know that you are the only person who will ever know what is really behind her enigmatic half-smile, the possessor of the sole key to her vast treasury of secrets and mysteries. The end? So the story ends. Baroque is safe, at least from Succoth-Benoth, if not from its own home demons, from the fatal obsessions and dark imaginings of those who dwell within its shadows. Whether from the dark god's influence or some other and even more ancient curse, it seems that the city of dreadful night will always be troubled by the machinations of deranged scientists and power-hungry occultists. by strange dreams and reality warping magic, by the misty vapors rising at midnight from freshly turned graves and creaking gallows, by the pale airs of ancient and corrupt bloodlines, and by the withered hands of long dead priest kings, by vampire and werewolf and horla and a host of other strange things. Baroque will remain the city of dreadful night in all its terror and glory, with all its secrets, horrors, and wonders. And would one ever want it any other way? The end. We have made it to the end. So let us see what our last stats are. Whew. We have ended this story once again with performance being our highest stat. We did not go all in on science. We tried to diversify, and in the end, performance ended up being our way. We ended up being a slightly compassionate, a bit debonair and scheming. Very, very reasoned, but cynical, somewhat hedonistic, and neither exceptionally courteous or blunt. We have survived 81% electricity and 80% sanity, but only 81% humanity as well. We are low on minions, sabotage, and evidence. We had a tiny bit of research on hand. We were a bit dark, a bit theatric, quite lawful, and sided with Rococo to an extent. As for the cast, Holofernes is our friend, Julian is our acquaintance, Mona is our beloved, Raucus is our friend, Chloe is unfortunately gone away, but we are still quite fond of her in memory. And Nicholas is, well, even less of an acquaintance than Julian. That has been our second run of the mysteries of Baroque. As for our achievements, the achievements we got this round are like a fly in amber, because we attended the Frozen Man's Awakening. The inmate in the East Wing, the identity of inmate 4386. Night Flyers, because we joined the Vendetta, Rococo's dreaded secret service. And the Order of St. Icarus. We received a medal from Rococo for our work on their behalf. So, Mona Lisa Smile. We have earned Mona's love and trust. Those are the new ones that we gained this round. As you can see, there are many more achievements to find, far more than we have found in both of our runs. We run into the option to pick up followers here and there. We've met the vampire. We've met the occultist. So I imagine that there's probably a way to meet the Horla, maybe on the docks. We didn't go to the docks this time. We've met the werewolf. So yeah, we've met a few of the monsters. There's at least a few more here and there and everywhere. Yeah, it's hard to say. So if you're interested in more facets of this story that you have not seen, I highly recommend the Mr. Baroque by Choice of Games. You can pick it up on either choiceofgames.com or in Steam. The Choice of Games catalog is fairly extensive, and this is only one of the stories. We have played Weirwood games in the past, which was a Regency style story with elements of magic and and social politics of the gentry, which is also a very interesting and highly an interesting story that I also highly recommend of Choice of Games. So this is two Choice of Games stories that we have experienced. They're both choose your own adventures, as you have seen. They are absolutely beautifully written. And next week we will begin a whole new story entirely. Um, Seeing as we have finished this up sooner than I expected this week, it looks like back Winter Fairy. Congratulations to Caleb. He is now a fifth grader. Good job, buddy. That's fantastic news. He should be so proud. I'm sure you are. Yay! And now he is able to enjoy a break from school. Um, that's fantastic. Well, I hope he looks forward to fifth grade. Big year, big year. But yeah, we finished the story, Winter Fairy. We managed to save the world through art this time. Um, we were definitely a performer more than anything else. This was supposed to be the science run, but it didn't quite work out that way. In any case, we finished the story. I'm probably going to end here now that we've finished this story for today. So I'm not quite sure what I will stream tomorrow, but I will be streaming tomorrow at the usual time, 1 p.m. Eastern US time, which is other times and other time zones. So feel free to look it up. Um, Perhaps we will just hang out and play some Stardew Valley. Perhaps we will do something else. But we do have a choice to pick a story for next week. Um, so yeah, we do have a choice to pick up a new story next week. Let me switch over to that. Give me just a moment, and we will take a look at Steam here. Oops. So yeah, between Eagle's Heir, which is defend Napoleon's heir in the steampunk alternate history game of political maneuvering, airship adventure, and romantic intrigue. Will you bring liberty to France, or will you plunge Europe into bloody war? We have The Magician's Workshop. When your master is murdered, you must uncover the magical secrets of Renaissance Italy before your rival apprentices expose them first. We also have MetaHuman Inc. As the CEO of a corporation that sells superpowers to the highest bidder, you'll harness magic and travel through time to inflate your stock prices. And we also have Tally Ho. Only a perfect servant can solve a perfect mess. Being the perfect gentleman's gentleman, these lady, does not make you an angel. Can you untangle your employer's naughtiest problems with elegance and unruffled grace? So those are the choices we have. The Eagle's Hair, The Magician's Workshop, MetaHuman Inc., or Tally Ho. We will start that story next week. Looks like everyone is looking forward to The Magician's Workshop. Apparently, Renaissance Italy is the way we are going next week. Okay, cool. So I will start The Magician's Workshop on Monday, and we will figure out what we're doing tomorrow when tomorrow comes. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining me today. We as I've said, we finished The Mysteries of Baroque by Choice of Games. It has been a fantastic ride these last 2 weeks. We have enjoyed the story very much. You have enjoyed the story. Feel free to head to Steam or choiceofgames.com and pick up the story for yourself. It doesn't cost more than $6 or $7 US. And on choiceofgames.com, you can play the first 4 chapters for yourself for free. So that's always fun. So feel free to check it out, or any other story that Choice of Games has to offer. I've only actually played a few of them, only 2 of them to completion, multiple times now, and I have enjoyed every single story I've ever seen from them so far. They have a wide range of genres to choose from, and next Monday, we will start with the Magician's Workshop. Until then, I will see you guys tomorrow. We will figure out what we're doing tomorrow when tomorrow comes. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Congratulations to Caleb on becoming a 5th grader. And later, guys. Bye.